Yes, entertaining.
Can you imagine being able to incorporate that in anything that you are writing right now, or is this a kind of a
That was just-
standalone piece?
Yeah, the standalone piece just for,
Just
this
for
class,
class,
yeah.
okay. Okay. Can you imagine Sam doing, maybe not this story, but something on that vein? Do you feel like the story that you were writing about the guys going to the absinthe bar, is there a way to incorporate something similar to that in there, or do you feel like that story you wrote last week does that?
The story last year actually is I am planning on putting in my third diving book.
Yeah, okay.
So it's
Because it has a visual sensibility to it and, a lot of details in there. So, okay, all right. So let's move on to you, DL, or to Dave. Let's go to you.
I titled this the Reeves Family quote unquote Memorial Day,
Reeves Family Memorial Day,
or a day to remember.
Day to Remember. Okay,
On this Saturday in late May, a little humid, but crisp spring air with a slight breeze blowing the leaves of the lilacs bushes, which were more like trees after decades of neglect. Wisps of apple pear blossoms, along with the slight scent of peonies, daffodils, jonquils, wafting through the air. The Reeves clan was gathered in the backyard, anxiously anticipating the special occasion of being able to have grilled hamburgers. There were 6 of us in total, siblings, the oldest being David, who was tall, had long shoulder length, dark brown hair with brown eyes, and a scraggly beard and mustache, who had wire room classes that he didn't like to wear. Then he was in 9th grade. The nurse Debbie, a year younger, slim, blonde hair, blue eyes. The more thoughtful one of the siblings, always wanted to organize the entire group. There was then there was Mark, a year younger, an athlete with a brownish blonde hair and a crew cut and blue eyes. Next came Mary Beth, who's a self-proclaimed boss of the family. Being a little chubby and having a temper that never stopped, and you certainly didn't want to get in the way of. Next came next was Michael, 2.5 years younger than Mary Beth, with a stocky build and a smile and a gleam in his blue eyes, and blonde hair cut short. He was the rebel. He would do whatever he could, sometimes just to do it, and sometimes to try to get a rise from the others. We were playing a rowdy game of kicking and throwing the rather large yard ball as hard as we could at each other. The challenge of this game was to keep the ball out of the garden that bordered the backyard to the south, or the peonies that bordered the garden, and especially the mom's beloved flower bed up next to the house that was slightly raised. There was also the challenge of the ball getting caught in the lilac trees, or banging up against the horrendously long thorns of the thorn locust trees that were decades old, popping the ball. Pretty soon there was a scream. There was a big thud, and it followed by a scream from Mary Beth, and all of a sudden she was chasing Mark all over the backyard, yelling loudly, "Why in the world did you hit me so hard with the ball?" And Michael laughing like a circus clown, and Debbie trying to get everybody calmed down, and Pam, the youngest, who was just 3 years old, toddling around trying to avoid being hit by the ball, and David trying to make sure that Pam wasn't hit. Pretty soon, Mark said, "It looks like there's a lot of smoke in the neighborhood. And Mary Beth followed. It's probably just somebody burning leaves. But then Debbie insisted that they're not supposed to burn leaves in this time of year. So the game proceeded, and pretty soon you could hear sirens in the multiple sirens coming down Roosevelt Road, which we knew as I-90. We knew as Roosevelt Road, but others referred to it as I-90. And Mary Beth, the curious one, said, well, let's run to the front yard and see if we can see the fire engines passing on Roosevelt Road. As we came to the front yard, we realized that the plume of smoke was coming from the grill that Dad was grilling hamburgers. We also, my Aunt Ruth, who is 14 years older than David, and along with Mom, who was an average middle-aged woman with dark hair, brown eyes, and cat-rimmed, dark-rimmed glasses, came running out of the house, and Aunt Ruth, who was much on the bossy side, yelled out, Dick, what in the world are you doing? And there was Dad standing there with a spray bottle in one hand, a spatula in the other hand, standing over a rusted grill with smoke and fire just billowing out of the top. And he just sternly said, I'm just grilling hamburgers. And then Mom said, yeah, Dick likes the hamburgers well done. And so pretty soon we realized that the fire engines were not passing the house, but came into the half circle drive that went in front of us and the three neighbors coming off of Roosevelt Road. There were 4 trucks: the hook and ladder truck, the pumper, another ladder truck, and a paramedic truck, all coming into and stopping in front of our house on the gravel drive. Dad, looking bewildered, as the chief came out of the hook and ladder truck, he said, "What, sir? What are you doing?" Dad said, "I'm just cooking hamburgers," and the chief, somewhat bewildered, looked at him and said, "Well, some of the neighbors thought that the house was on fire, so they called us, and we're here." And Mom, in her good-natured manner, said, "Well, would you like a hamburger? They're well done." And the chief said, "No, we've got our own families." Then he yelled to the other firemen that were that had already piled out of the vehicles. Put it up, boys. There's, the house isn't on fire, the grill's just on fire.
Okay.
So this was the Memorial Day that the Reeves clan will never, ever forget.
That's great.
Yes, I don't suppose you would forget that one.
Part of the neighborhood.
No, no. Well, start with the things that he did in the story that, what can you visualize? What are the things that he said in the story that helped you visualize what was occurring? Just like Sam's story with his mother, I mean, I suspect all of us were prepared for the billy goat to nail her on her fanny before we ever got to that, simply by the preparation that he set up for both the description of the goats and then her bending over. That was a setup that you couldn't miss. So what about Dave's story? Where did he set us up? How did it get set up so that you could anticipate where this was going?
The description of his neighborhood, I like that he includes the smells of like lilac and pear trees and apple trees. And you can kind of visualize these trees in the neighborhood just from him describing that. You're good at description, very good at description.
Global family.
Yeah, and I also like the comment laughing like a circus clown. That was great too. I can just visualize someone laughing like that.
So what else did he do that set us up for what was going to happen?
For me, it was his comment of, we're grilling hamburgers.
Yes. Yeah, go ahead. I'm going to comment to that as well. Are there other comments, or additionally, Gladys, are there other things that you want to comment? Okay.
Well, except about the hamburgers early on.
Yes. Yeah. He, much like the description of the billy goat.
Because they were looking forward to it.
Yes,
That was,
yes.
that was the big
That was
event.
the big event. Yeah. He gets us set up for the hamburger grilling. Anything else that he did as a setup for it. And I think that Meredith is correct. One of the things that's interesting is that you have the Memorial Day spring smells of the floral, and then you have the smoke. They serve as, counterpoints to each other. So there is that. Other things that you paid attention to or that you noted. What else did he do having to do with the people in the story that helps to set it up as well? Did you hear him describe the characters in the story?
The personalities.
Yeah, with each personality, which ones does he set you up with for this story?
One with the temper.
The one with the temper, yes, you get that. And it's almost a red herring in my mind, frankly. A red herring is when you get sidetracked.
Oh.
I have my sister when we were growing up, had an absolutely horrible temper. And I will not share her nickname because she gets so mad when I share it. But she had a very explosive temper. And so many events happened in our family because of her explosive temper. So when he mentions Michael and Mary Beth, I am ready for an explosion with those two, primarily because he set us up with that. And then that's not what the plot of the story is exactly. But he set us up with some kind of a false potential, and then it doesn't happen. But the first setup about the hamburgers is certainly part of it. Other things that you could note with regard to the story. Any other comments about that? Are there some things that you can imagine he might do that could maybe tighten it up a little bit,
Needs to show more instead of tell more.
okay?
So if you're talking about somebody's body or their haircut, you can talk about, you can help visualize that by making an action or somebody saying something about it. So you don't have to just tell it in that same order, this.
Yeah. Yeah, that part was almost like a bullet point type presentation of the characters. But one of the things I thought was fascinating, you have two boys with crew cut short hair, and you have the oldest brother who has long hair, scraggly,
Yeah.
and he says, I don't remember how old he says he is, but as I'm listening through this, I thought, well, he's not much more than a high schooler in this story. It doesn't seem like, but he's got a beard and he has shoulder length long hair. He is a hippie in my mind. That's what I saw. So it might very well be, we cut to the chase. The oldest brother is the alternative brother, and then you have the two crew cut characters. I mean, you might contrast the three boys instead of putting them all in sequence. You might put the three of them in terms of, and where the crew cut's the product of dad, and the oldest one is the product of rebellion. So because you have one that sort of sounds like he would be the more likely one to rebel, but he's got short hair too. So those are some things, David, you might think about with tightening up a story, juxtapositioning characters in light of, their descriptions, or in the sequence of character. Then I would avoid trying to do like she said, where it's telling us all of the same things. Is it really important what color their eyes are? I'm sorry, I think that's mine. I shut it off. Okay, it's my phone.
No,
it's
his.
Oh, it's yours? Okay. No, it sounds exactly like the one I've been in. I've been getting a lot of substitute calls today. So that might be a consideration of how to tighten those things up. I've never heard of a locust bush. I don't know, what are those?
Thorn locust trees.
Are they-
They're, all the bushes and trees were over 175 years old.
Okay,
They're
but-
old, and, but it's a tree that has, banana-shaped, seed pods on it, about the size of a banana, little slimy inside. But these, because of the age, had tremendously long thorns, anywhere from 8 to 18 inches long.
Wow.
And, in fact, I fell on one once and thought my bone was sticking out. It wasn't.
Well, I would say the description of it would be better than telling us about the 125 years old. But, if it's relevant, but if it's not super relevant to your plot line of what your story is, unless it had some fragrance that contrasts with the smoke, maybe you don't go into that as much. But, the story with Mark and Mary Beth, or Michael and Mary Beth, you set up some, you could tell us about that incident and how that then redirects the attention to the smoke in the air. So, okay. And I don't know, with what you're doing, Dave, you've handwritten those, how hard it's going to be to try to edit some of that, but you might just see whether you can. And if there's some way to, like we were talking about, trying to put it on.
Yeah, I was gonna tell you, Dave, if you come and get together with me this week, I'll sit and type all of it out and put it in really big letters so you can see it easily and it'll go easier
It's
for
in
you.
font this big. You can
Yeah.
get that.
Yeah, and the reason I say that is that if I can get it in print, then I could perhaps help edit it with you, so
Yeah.
that you would have some idea of what I'm talking
Yeah.
about. I can help you kind of work
Trying
through
to
that.
read the handwriting after
Yeah.
the fact is probably tough too.
Yeah, it's
so-
hard to do that. So it's just, I'm more than willing, as I've pointed out with several of you, I will edit responses if you send them to me in an email. Maybe not the whole thing, but I'll give you some pointers on how to tighten things up. That would, so in regard to what I'm saying to you, I can help you do that. All right, so Deanna, what do you have for us today?
Disclaimer, I don't write about family.
Well, that's okay.
That's just for everyone else.
Yeah, that's fine.
Let's see, which way do we want to go here? Getting ready for this one. This is the day I met Tinkerbell. My name is Wolf. I guess I'm a bit of a badass chick. I'm strong as all get out and have never lost a fight, no matter the opponent. But I'm not bad. I'm protective, more than anything else, and really dislike bullies. Everyone comes to me with their problems, or if they need sympathetic shoulder, geez, if I want them to or not. When did I become everyone's big sister? I never thought I put off that type of vibe, but I digress. So anyhow, I live in this place, let's just call it a boarding house. A flop house comes to mind, but that's only because everybody here flops around. Let's see, currently there are 6 people living here, including me. I have a master bedroom with the ensuite. I never actually called it, but here I am. As I was saying, 5 other adults. Rhodopus Cinderella, we call her Rhoda. My best friend, Barbara Harris, we call her Rapunzel, who's lived here for 2 years. Charles Charming, my love. James Hook, such a cutie. And Blanchette Hood, as in writing, whom I never remembered the name of. I don't know what it is with Blanche. I have asked her name dozens of times, but I'll probably ask again the next time I see her. She lives here but spends most of the time with her boyfriends. He works at her boyfriend's, okay. He works with forestry. I can't remember his name either. She's tall and lanky with medium length hair that is always a different color every time I see her. It's really no big deal though. She always tells me she can't remember my name either. Like Wolf is hard to remember. I guess in her defense, Wolf is a strange name for a girl. Other than Blanche, I get along really well with my roomies. They all come to me when they're sad or if they have a secret to tell. I seem to be the one to help with romance problems or safety issues. I'm not sure how I ended up as the house guardian, but hey, I'm not one to complain. They tell me I'm so easygoing and that they wish they had nothing to worry about or bother them. Things bother me, but I can't do anything about it. I try to just let it go. My motto is, if I can't kill it, I walk away. My boyfriend is Chuck. He works in advertising, which is not my thing, but he is beautiful, over 6 foot with green eyes, longish blonde hair, and very charismatic. He could sell anything. We've been dating since I moved into the house. He was here before me, but said he felt alone until I showed up. I'm not sure what he means, but he's very good to me and I adore him. The day I showed up at the house, showed up at the house to see about a room. He walked up to me and introduced himself and asked to marry me. I laughed, but sensed I needed to be gentle. So I didn't laugh too loud or call him a wacko. I'm like that. I sense things. It's annoying most of the time. Rhoda quickly became my bestie. She's a bit of an introvert, but so clever and smart, and we have nearly the same sense of humor, which can sometimes be off-putting to people. She's taller than me with pretty blue eyes. I adore her. She's the sister I never had. Barbara is newer to the house. She's a sweet girl, a bit naive, but learns quickly. I watch out for her when we go to the pub. Guys hit on her a lot. Well, of course they do. She's a knockout, leggy, blonde, thin, hazel eyes, and a killer rack. She lived a very sheltered life before she showed up at our door. All in all, she's my opposite. Who's left? Oh yeah, James. The boy is the whole package, though a bit needy. James has beautiful wavy dark hair and that dusts his shoulders and dreamy caramel eyes. He's always a bit close to me. I really don't mind. I don't feel it's in a creepy way or anything. He's just there. I've talked to Chuck about him, and he said he knew James and wasn't worried. He trusts me. He sees I've kind of grown to like the whole thing. Often he sits so we touch, like today. Today we were told that a new chick was moving in. I'm kicked back on the couch, playing a game on my phone. James is sitting in a chair with his feet up on the cafe table, reading so that I can hook my foot around his ankle. Barbara and that weird chick, I can't remember her name, is in the kitchen baking something. Barbara's always baking something. The rabbit that Alice, she used to live here but moved last year, left with us because she couldn't have it in her new digs, is trying to get up on the sofa beside me. It's a long-haired lot. Why does this thing like me? I have no idea. To me, rabbits are to be barbecued, not pets. Rhoda, who's on the couch beside me, picks it up and cuddles it. The doorbell rings. We all look at one another. Rhoda shrugs, gets up, cradling the lagomorph to answer. I can hear some mumbling conversation. The front door is a couple rooms away, and I'm not only half interested. So I don't hear much. I look up when Rhoda comes back in, escorting a chick in blue tights and Daisy Dukes. Actually, I call these shorts kind of cheek leakers. And a tank top. I guess she's Hispanic. Not that I would care, but she's got that amazing skin and thick, dark hair. Hola, she chimes. I'm Maybelle Tinker. Her smile is glorious. I raise my hand. Wolf, James, Chuck, you met Rhoda, and you can introduce yourself to them. I wave toward the kitchen. Did she just wink at me? She plops down next to me. You're cute. Thanks, really, I eye her. You have fabulous skin, but I'm not gay. She frowns, clearly confused. I'm confused. I watch as she moves over toward James, displaying as much cleavage as possible. James blushes. Did I mention I love this boy? And tries to make distance. I'm trying to figure out her game. James closes his book, stands and leans over to kiss my cheek. Going to the post office. See you later. It dawns on me. She thinks I'm gay. Well, I'm slumped on the couch I'm a guy. Sorry, she thinks I'm a guy. Well, I'm slumped on the couch with my feet up on the coffee table, jeans, oversized sweatshirt, my hair tucked in a cap. And my voice is growly deep. So I guess maybe, well, it wouldn't be the first time. Take, no offense, but I'm a chick, like you. I pull off the cap and give her a toothy smile.
Well, that's quite a household. Okay, so responses to what you just had her read.
Is it a young age? Why you look or story?
Could be.
I think of it as you're talking teens and in some sort of a sheltered environment, halfway shelter or something.
Could be. They could be, yeah, right around there. I'm thinking 20-ish, 30-ish, but yeah, right around there.
So what did you hear about it that is memorable or that you can respond to that found entertaining, amusing?
I was wondering if there was a certain personality or aura that Wolf was going to become in the story. Things like rabbits as food and caring for people. Was the personality still a mystery and is going to be developed as you write more?
Probably.
Okay. I kept thinking, wow, this is a tough chick, or wow, she has heart of gold or she's protective or, I didn't zero in yet on any particular, type of person that she was.
It's sometimes tough and sometimes tender.
Well, I kept waiting for something to happen here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was a buildup, but you just haven't gotten there yet.
Yeah, that's it. So, I saw you, Meredith. What did you start to say?
She didn't hear you.
Oh, I was gonna say, I saw you lean forward. Did you have a response to her or?
Well, I just liked it. I thought it was really descriptive. You could, and I thought naming this persona Wolf when she was female really made her memorable. Choosing that particular name, it's something that you wouldn't forget, that this is the girl named Wolf.
It is interesting because Frank brought up the compassion side, and symbolically rabbits are the compassion and the prey.
For wolves.
Yeah, so it's interesting dichotomy there.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it really reminds me of your setup of a graphic novel too. So that was, that's a newer thing a lot of people probably don't know about is graphic novels, which are comic books, but they are novel lengths. So a lot of the younger generation is reading graphic novels as opposed to just the text.
Because they don't have the patience for.
Well,
Yeah.
that's part of it, but I think the graphic novel is also a device to, it's a genre that has emerged in part because people are so fascinated by the comics of the past. And when I was growing up, there were actually, I remember when I was a kid that like drugstores would sell graphic novels with Shakespeare stories.
Oh, wow.
They had graphic novels of like the serious literary fiction. I remember Gulliver's Travels.
There were a lot of
Fairly sophisticated.
Old Man in the Sea.
Yeah, they had stories that were written in graphic novel back then,
Oh,
and it was very engaging. But they have now written, there are gobs of these things that are serious fiction, and some of them are, they're not fluff, and they can be quite, actually kind of grim. There's one story called Mouse, and it's a graphic novel that is about Germany during World War II under the Holocaust. And it's a very serious novel where it takes it from the perspective of the kind of like Animal Farm did by George Orwell. He took his and he put it in an actual, it's a narrative, but from the perspective of animals under Trotsky, then Stalin and Lenin, you have this whole story in Animal Farm. Well, in Mouse, it's the story of Hitler's Germany from the perspective of these mice. And it's become quite, I don't know, how long has that been out? It's been a long time, like 15
Interesting.
years, 15 or 16. I can remember being in the high school. And so that can be it could take on some interesting factors. Any other comments before? Because I have a couple of thoughts. Dave.
I could very much envision, because I frequently visited what I would refer to as a hippie commune in the center of sophisticated Wheaton, Illinois. And I really liked the descriptions using fairy tale characters. It gave you a vision of the person without a lot of graphic detail. But I could definitely envision a house like that.
That's a really good point. There's a term called illusion. and we allude to something, like if I talk about Moby Dick. Moby Dick was the story of a man pursuing a whale that has taken his leg, and it's a revenge story. Well, you can allude to Queequeg, or you could allude to Captain Ahab without telling the whole story. It implies a whole realm of stories.
Concepts.
And I think if you've, and I don't know how many of you have ever seen the film or the movie Shrek, but Shrek did that. It alluded to a lot of fairy tale stories, and some of them are hilariously funny plays on stuff that we are very familiar with. And as you point out, she takes, by just referencing Rapunzel or referencing Cinderella and giving her we immediately have a context of when she's describing the character. We don't need to have,
Nicknames.
she gives the nickname then, but she gives us stuff that you don't have to have a lot filmed, fitting in there. If we get
That's
a
why you
lot
don't have to say that they've got long hair. You
Right.
already said it by saying
by
she.
Rapunzel.
Yeah.
Yeah, we get that. And the same thing for all of these. And that's why when you bring it up, Frank, about the wolf character name, the function of a wolf and what it does is it's a interesting twist. So and I think Edie makes a really valid point. Will you work on this story to create more of a plot line? Is that the plan of this?
It's a dream. This was a dream. Straight up.
But
That's-
regardless, if you take a dream and incorporate it to let it become a story, to have an arc of a beginning, middle, and end, that would be a useful tool. And this would be a really interesting one to let it become past and I woke up. That's a cheat.
Oh, no.
We want a storyline, and so that would be a suggestion. So think about that. We're going to move on. And Lois, what did you share today?
Here come some new teachers. The man zipped into a warm, worn and oil-spotted Carhartts, a fur beaver hat on his head, and thick white bunny boots on his feet. Looked up at us, up and down, and decided we were perfect. Tanana's Chaco races today, he explained with a smirk and raised eyebrows. You should race. If you're good, you'll win over your students. And even if you come in last, you get to take home a red lantern. Although this is our first year in Tanana, my husband and I were not new to Alaska. And most communities found some novel way to put new teachers to the test. In one community, it was the new teacher potluck, where you were invited to feast on traditional native foods such as fish eggs. They explode in your mouth like pop rocks. A gudek, it's commonly known as Eskimo ice cream, but it's a frozen mixture of seal oil and lard, sweetened with berries. And stink heads, salmon heads buried and allowed to ferment naturally underground for a year before eating. Those with the strongest stomachs and the weakest olfactory glands received a slap on the back and a welcome to the community. The others faced a year of teasing from both students and parents. In Tanana, the Chaco race was evidently their way to size us up. We're sort of short on requirements, I pointed out. No sled, no dog team, and none of the know-how to compete in this race. But John Huntington, one of the town's leading mushers, assured us that his dog lot had plenty to outfit our needs. Always looking for new experiences, I was quick to accept his invitation, and Frank reluctantly took on the role of cheerleader. Within 20 minutes, a sled and a team of 8 husky dogs were at my disposal. So how does the person steer this thing, I asked John. With 6 teams already queuing and my team set to start second in the lineup, he gave me a thorough rundown. You yell G to the dogs to go to the right, and you yell ha to turn them to the left. Stand in the sled runner and then just hang onto this rail for all you're worth, he said before turning to help others. Over my shoulder, I could hear Lester Earhart, another well-known musher, talking to Frank. It appeared Frank's cheerleader role wasn't as alluring as his own chance to compete. But the race was mine, and if he could talk to Lester about outfitting him, he was welcome to get a red lantern. We were to race a mile down the Tanana River ice to the marker and then turn and race home. With John Huntington's experienced dogs and only one team in front of me, I could almost hear the cheers and stunned compliments as I crossed the finish line in first place. the official timer called go to the race, the first racer, and I had 2 minutes of the jitters before would be next to leave. My dogs strained and leaped against their harnesses in an effort to catch up with the dogs ahead of them. But John held me steady until it was my turn. Go! I heard him. And like the wind, the dogs raced away, their paws shooting up clumps of hard snow as they dug in. Instantly, my cheeks grew stiff and the lashes on my wind-blown, watery eyes started to freeze shut, but I was happy to be flying fast. Once I saw the first team stalled on the ice, I knew all I had to do was go around them and stay the course. Gee, I shouted to the lead dog. Maybe he didn't hear me because he continued to go straight toward the stop team. Okay, I tried, yelling even louder. No effect either. The lead dog either had a girlfriend or an enemy to settle scores with on the other team, and he charged straight into the bubbling mass of canine energy, dragging the rest of us along. In moments, the leads from both teams were entwined like boiled spaghetti, and within 2 more seconds, my dream of a triumphant win melted like snowflakes in the spring. I thought back to John Huntington's instructions, not one word about untangling amorous or angry dogs. So I held tight and waited for John to ride his snow machine out to this cat's cradle heap of dogs. While he sorted them into 2 working teams, I watched 5 teams pass me, and the musher on the sled passing last looked a whole lot like my cheerleading husband, Frank. It was evident I was not going to be coming in first, but there was no way I was taking home an embarrassing red lantern. On my way back, I was now second to last and an expert at holding onto the rail. My dogs didn't seem to know their G's from their haws, but they did fine just following the other teams back home. By the time even the musher that had tied up my team for so long passed mine, all the other racers were already across the finish line. Well, at least I'd have a souvenir of my first dog race. Telling myself I planned it that way made coming in last almost bearable. Cheering and lots of smiles greeted me as I crossed the finish, and I gratefully handed the team and sled back to John. Boy, your husband really knows how to race, John exclaimed. He started last and he finished first. I found Frank's eyes and he raised his shoulders as if apologizing for showing me up. I nodded and smiled and trying to make it look as if the race went exactly as planned. Well, I have a place all picked out for the show to showcase my red lantern, I said proudly to John, hoping to show no hard feelings toward the team that had caused my problems or my overachieving husband. Red lantern, he puzzled. Oh, we don't really have a red lantern. That's just what we tell the losers to make them feel better. But if we did, it certainly would have your name on it.
No consolation prize.
Very good, Lois.
So, some of the things that you found memorable in this, right?
There was no apology. That was an error.
That's called fiction.
So, other things. What did you note in the visuals or in the details of the story?
I like the term tangled like boiled spaghetti. And that was pretty descriptive.
And the cat's cradle caught my attention too. A great alluding to,
I like the story that where when you got into a new place, you were tested.
Mm-hmm.
Did the guy ever apologize to say, yeah, well, I gave you brand new dogs just for giggles?
No.
They did give you some.
They were some culls, yeah. There were definitely
Yeah.
some culls in that group, but
It was just,
it's the community laughs. They have a good time.
They stood up on the bank and watched the Chaco race every year. So, yeah.
so other thoughts, Jim or Clarence, what was it that you paid attention to that you found entertaining or interesting?
Well, I don't know about this G and Haw thing. I don't know why they didn't listen.
They didn't.
They didn't care.
They had another agenda.
She probably didn't have any lead dogs. Your lead dogs know G and Haw. But if you have like
Just the
dogs
miscellaneous
from the team or the ones next to the sled, they don't know G and Haw.
I was going to say if it was her voice, because you would think that they would have to know their
Their owner, yeah.
Yeah. So they
I don't
just
know.
were,
Well, that would make sense though, the idea that there's no lead dog. It's like,
yeah.
you know, lead animals of any kind. They're the ones that. Other things, other people down here, what did you catch on to that you liked or heard? I can think of food.
Yeah, that's it.
Oh, yeah.
The food was the part that, you know,
That they were lucky they didn't have to deal with that.
well, I think you might have, didn't you?
Yeah,
You
Magdalene
ate
said,
it, yeah. And because you wouldn't be able to describe it if you hadn't had it. And that description of the flavored fat, what did you pick up on, Jane? What was it that you heard in
The
that?
food pretty much was pretty amazing.
It was.
Pretty gory, pretty yucky. Yeah, I could see that. And
What-
see them trying you with that, seeing what kind of person you are, would you try it or not, or,
They measured you that way.
yeah.
Curiosity with the food that you were eating. When I was a kid, our missionaries used to come and they would talk about North America, and they would go to Alaska and they would be up in that part of the country. And I remember them talking about the blubber. So that was something I remembered from my my childhood. Do they have any flavoring in it? Do they salt it? Do they do anything with it for themselves, or do they?
The blubber,
And what does it taste like?
it's rubberish and fishy and rubberish.
Actually, where the teeth out there, some of the elders had chewed the blubber muktek so long that they worn their teeth.
Kind of like Native Americans do, from like the tanning process.
And they do them with it too.
Okay. Well, then there was the one that you said that sounded, it was like Pop Rocks.
Yeah.
Oh,
Fish eggs, fish eggs.
That was quite descriptive.
Yeah.
It's just fishy smell, or it's just a fishy taste?
Salty fishy.
Do they salt it at all?
I don't remember the song. You should
Some
really
of them do, but not
You don't
usually.
have to.
I just was curious with regard to that, where they live and the kind of diet that they would have to live on. That aspect of it, whether they get sick with the insufficiency of vitamin C or some of those other, the things that they're eating wouldn't seem
Some
like.
of the older people had rickets, but by the time of
It's very white now.
Yeah.
statehood,
They were,
they had medical people coming in and
Well, they're not that subsistence anymore. I mean, when we were there, there's lots of, gusset food and,
because I think about the Scandinavians in like the Minnesota and Wisconsin, the lutefisk stuff, I'm sorry, but not going there. But it's still part of the culture. It's still very much a part of the food of the people that are Scandinavian. So okay, well, we'll need to move on. But Frank, that was how did you win that?
just skill.
They call that outhouse luck, Frank.
Actually, I think it was good dogs.
Good dogs.
Okay, so
It had been a great year for the Metlakatla Chief volleyball team. The team had won the 2A regional tournament and was headed for Anchorage for the state tournament. So several of the girls had been to either Anchorage or Seattle with their family or other relatives. But this was a chance to be in the city without the parental eye hovering over them. I wasn't at all concerned with this group of girls. The team had been a model of good behavior all year. I had called my brother who was living in Anchorage and let him know that we would be at East High School for the coaches meeting Thursday morning. He said he would plan to meet us sometime mid-morning and see what our schedule would look like. My brother and I had always had a good relationship and enjoy a bit of banter when we get together. Since he is 6 years younger, he has always been the little brother. But to his warped way of thinking, since he is 2 inches taller and 20 pounds heavier, he has always been the big brother. Being the number one seed out of Southeast meant that we wouldn't be playing until Thursday evening. So the girls decided to sleep in, go to the gym while I was at the coaches meeting, and then out to breakfast. When we pulled into the parking lot, the girls spied a donut shop across the parking lot and wanted to go. The mean and nasty coach told them they were coming into the gym with him and breakfast would be after the meeting. The girls were told to wait in the gym and I parked them in the northwest corner, high up in the bleachers to watch warm-ups. They were still smiling and laughing. After telling them not to leave the gym, I headed to the meeting. And following the meeting, I was crossing the lobby headed toward the gym when I saw my brother coming out of the gym. We chatted for a bit and I told him I had to get the girls and take them to breakfast. He said he was heading downtown to the office for a bit and would be back for the game this evening. He left and I went into the gym and nary a mischief was to be seen. A bit of steam was building as I looked around the gym and down the hallways. I came back into the gym just in time to see one of the girls coming back in from the far hallway. I was more than irritated and a whole lot disappointed. The team had never given me any reason to doubt they wouldn't do as requested, and I could always depend on them to be where they were supposed to be. When we met at the base of the bleachers, some were holding donuts and they were in a good mood. I think I started off with something along the lines of, "Where were you supposed to be? What are you doing with donuts when I told you can go get donuts since we were eating after the meeting?" My voice may have been raised a tad, and then I let them know I was disappointed in their behavior. Several of the girls have been trying to interrupt me with, "But Mr. Pratt, coach, and finally, you said we could go. At that point, I was thoroughly steamed. I never told anyone they could go, and I told all of you to stay in the gym. No, coach, no. Remember when you were walking by the gym door a little while after you went to the meeting? Of course I didn't remember since I hadn't left the meeting at any time. Pammy still insisted that I had told them they could go. I told them we would sort things out later, but we had to get to breakfast, so go get in the van. The walk across the parking lot was quiet and the ride downtown was even quieter. Breakfast wasn't a barrel of laughs, and I was trying to figure out how to handle the situation. We went back to the hotel and had a team meeting where I let them know that they needed to be depended on to do what was expected of them. I couldn't, and I definitely didn't want to have to chaperone girls of that age. In the afternoon, we headed back to the gym to watch the teams, one of which we would be playing the next day. The girls weren't playing jokes on each other or accusing teammates of making eyes at boys as they walked by. It was a pretty somber group. We were watching the match previous to ours when my brother walked across the end of the gym toward where we were sitting. At about the same time, Pammy let out a half squeal, a half "oh my gosh," and a half gasp as she pointed toward the end of the gym. The girls' heads came together like iron filings drawn to a magnet. I went down to the floor to meet my brother while the girls engaged in some oohs and ahs only teenage girls can make when laying eyes on a male object of discussion. With a "How was your meeting? I'm glad you could make it," my brother and I climbed up the bleachers to where the team was still closely in conference. Lisa came down a couple of rows and asked if she and Pammy could talk to me. "Just a moment, Lisa. I want to introduce you to my brother. Well, all of you. But Coach, just a minute. Girls, this is my brother who lives here in Anchorage, and he thought he would come and watch the team I've been bragging about this year." I provided a little more about his background and told him that he played volleyball in a league. So we wanted to show him Ollie was right when he said it ain't bragging if you can do it. By this time, Lisa was pulling on my arm. Not wanting my brother to hear, she whispered, "This is she thinks might be the same that Pammy thought you, that she asked because she thought we could go get donuts. In her excitement, the whisper was more like a vibrant stage whisper, and I managed to get the gist of it. My brother looked at the girls and laughed. He had overheard. He looked at Lisa and asked, "Were you the girl that stuck her head out the door earlier this morning and asked if she could go get a donut?" "No, that was Pammy," Lisa said. "That's her right over there." My brother looked over to where Pammy was sitting and asked if she liked donuts. Had liked the donuts. "We all did, Coach, but Coach is mad at us for going over there without getting permission." My brother looked at me and said, "Well, you did get permission. I know you did because I gave it to you." I didn't have any idea who was asking me if they could go get a donut. By this time, he was laughing. Some young lady stuck her head out the door and asked if she could go get donuts, and I certainly didn't know her and I didn't care. So I said, of course she could. The girls picked up on this and let me know that they were in the right. In an effort to help me out, or so he later claimed, John offered, "You were still in the wrong, girls, since you should have known at a glance that you were asking someone much more handsome than your coach." Talk about a mood change and a clearing of the air. The girls' laughter on the sides about wishing they had a handsome coach didn't get in the way of their play during the first match, and it went very well. The girls made sure John was invited to the next day's match and thanked him whenever I was near for letting them go get donuts. For the rest of the trip, they entertained themselves with jokes about the contrasting appearance of many males as they walked by on the gym floor with that of their coach.
So observations, we're gonna have to probably move on because I want to hear from you two tonight or today. So what comments would you have to make regarding this story?
I could envision the picture very well. I drove a school bus for 10.5 years part-time. I was at many athletic events, particularly girls' teams that where the coaches would choose me as a driver, and so I could very much relate to exactly what was going on and the confusion and conniving.
So other things.
Really cute story.
I got a little bit of the foreshadowing, and he's talking about his brother and expected that, that they probably mistook your brother for you. And there's a little bit of lead up to that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I had it figured out too, but it was cute.
I guess this would be my suggestion. I want to make sure we have enough time to hear from Clarence and Jim today. In the place in your story that I would draw a line would be at the point when he says he's more handsome than your coach. I would leave pretty much I would either try to incorporate those other pieces prior to that, put that is the last line. Because that feels like the punchline of the moment. And if you even waited and just had your brother maybe say it after the games, or maybe you reshuffle your storyline, but that to me is the punchline. So that would, to me, because it's not to say those other comments that are the rest of it don't. I mean, I like the image of the girls in the gym observing all the boys and men and comments. That's classic. But I think in the context of this story, it feels like that's the point. So that would be where I would potentially go with.
Wrap it up.
Yeah. Okay, Clarence, let's hear from you.
Well, I'm totally, totally lost and confused about what I'm supposed to be doing. And, but I did write down some things.
Well, that's awesome.
I was confused about how to try to separate writing about places and writing about people in a different part of the story. But anyway.
And let me just say this to you. If that was confusing to you, that's okay, because the bottom line is this group, this class, is to get you to write down about the people and the places and incorporating. So if you did the two of them together, it really doesn't matter, because that's really what it boils down to, that we are writing about both.
Thank you.
Okay, so good to go.
I was born November 12, 1934, in my grandfather's small white cabin on the back of what is now 344 North DeSmith Avenue. I was soon taken home by my parents to the homestead known as the Dry Farm, 25 miles southeast of Buffalo, across Crazy Woman Creek on Traven Road. My grandparents lived in Buffalo, were in health, and we had little contact with them. I was the firstborn son to Charles and Doris Bishop. I was raised on cow's milk straight from the cow. The family had very little contact with the rest of the world, with the exception of Dad going to work for some of the neighbors. Many things came by mail that went 3 times a week. The plan was to go to Buffalo once a month. Brother Don was born in 1936. I have no real memory of this. I do remember that he was a sickly small child. I do remember playing outside, getting into trouble, like the time we fed the cookies to the goats through the woven wire fence. Brother Everett was born in December of 1939 in Buffalo. We lived with the grandparents waiting for his birth. I remember watching Chris Johnson to deliver milk with a horse and wagon in glass bottles. While waiting for Everett's arrival, I attended kindergarten for a few weeks, which was held in the basement of the library, which now houses the museum. This was my first encounter to other children. In 1940, we moved to a ranch on Johnson Creek, about 10 miles northwest of Buffalo, known as the Schrader Place. The owner had died and it was terribly run down. One of the reasons to move was to be close to school for me. The Lower Johnson Creek School was about a half mile from the home. I walked to school. When I was in the first grade, there was 2 other boys in school. Attendance varied, sometimes as many as 8. Miss Lois Harrison was my first grade teacher, my first encounter with adult, not a family member. She was a good teacher. There were other teachers through the years, some better than others. The last 4 years, we had a very good teacher. In 1944, the family moved to a place on Rock Creek, about 5 miles north of Buffalo, where 2 of my nephews live on part of us today. It was about 2 miles to school. At various times, we rode horses, walked, rode a bicycle, or was picked up by a teacher who drove a car. During the blizzard of 1949, the teachers lived at the school. I drove a team of horses to school and picked up the neighbor kids on the way. I started to high school in Buffalo the fall of 1949. I was in a class of about 50 kids, an overwhelming experience. I drove a pickup to school and hauled milk to the creamery for the neighbor. There were about 6 to 8 10-gallon cans. I would leave the milk at the creamery before school and picked up the empties after school. Agriculture and FFA were my interest. I was obsessed about learning to weld, which became a big part of my life. The most influential person in my life was probably the ag instructor, Mr. John Driscoll. And that's as far as I got.
That's great.
Wow, Clarence, that's wonderful. You are of a generation that most of us in here are the 50s kids. And you're a generation before us, and I've never experienced what you experienced. And I really want you to encourage you to continue writing and get it on paper. That was wonderful.
Well, thank you.
Yeah.
I'm sure it was different.
Yeah, just not having met other kids or having interactions with other adults is, that's a long ways out. 25 miles back then might as well have been 300 miles, because it's so.
Well, the most modern car was a Model A Ford.
Oh, yeah.
So,
Yeah, you guys can
question,
Pass those down.
what about the rest of you? Meredith points out the appeal of hearing these stories. Was there anything in particular, Jane, that caught your attention in what he wrote that struck you?
Well, there's a lot of isolation.
The
you know,
isolation?
The isolation.
Oh, yeah.
That you lived through.
Yeah.
And the schooling was, wasn't just get on the bus.
No.
Yeah.
Who's that? Yeah, go ahead.
I wondered what they did with
I'm good.
that much
Puppy wings are good too.
milk.
Yeah.
Back then. I grew up on a dairy farm, so
Well,
I was real curious as
we
to,
had a creamer here.
oh, did,
Oh, yeah, there's a creamer here. But there was probably about
So creamy.
a half a dozen little dairies in Johnson County at that time.
Yeah, they all sold their milk there.
And they bought the milk.
oh, I didn't know there was cream.
Yeah.
I'm not sure
I
where,
thought maybe you were going door to door or something. I thought, wow.
I am curious, you were around. When I was growing up, the creamery was over on Angus Street. But
That's
was
where it
that the same one? Is that the one that Sam
That's where it was
Rosenthal
when I
had?
was in high school.
Well,
It doesn't seem like that's where it was.
the creamery at that time, we went through an alley, which is part of where the First Northern Bank is.
Okay.
Oh,
And then before I think before I got out of high school, they built a new creamery over on Angus Street.
Yeah. Okay. That's the one I remember.
Yeah.
So, just because I want to hear from Jim, real quickly, I mean, I think all of us picked up on the whole idea of the isolation. And if you grew up in this country, I knew, I had a lot of experience with that, even though I was a 50s kid because of where we were at the ranch. Edie, do you have memories of that on your ranch when you were out?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, well, we lived way out
Yeah.
towards the Montana line.
yeah, they were even further out in some ways.
Yeah.
But like she pointed out, 25 miles or 70 miles, getting into town was a big deal. And I think one of the things I'd be interested in having you expand on, that if you have a chance, as a kind of another kind of sub part to what you wrote, I think about the teachers. And maybe it'd be interesting for you if you mentioned one of the teachers and you said she was a really good one. And then you wrote that we had a lot of good teachers, some were better than others. Maybe mention some of the ones you remember and why. And why. I think of Dolly Iberlin. She taught out on Dead Horse Creek with the Joneses. She was only 4 years older than Tom Jones.
Yeah.
And she was his teacher.
Huh.
And so she had quite an experience during the blizzard of 49 as well. So that,
Yeah, they used to bring her back and forth to Buffalo on an airplane once in a while.
yeah, I mean, it was out there. It was really out there. There was no highway then. You had to go all the way north to Spotted Horse and then come back in that
Oh,
way
wow.
because there was no interstate then.
Yeah.
So anyway, well, I want to make sure, Jim, we hear from you. So what did you write?
And I'm kind of along the line of Clarence's. I'm telling the story and starting this, I suddenly realized that you could write a book about any one of these people and anything that's going on. There's so much to be said.
Yes.
So it's kind of mixed. But Mom and Dad were raised in Clearmont area. Dad, Louis, was raised on a homestead ranch 10 miles north of Lider, Wyoming. Mom, Thelma, was born and raised in a homestead west of Ucross. The folks were married in 42. Mom's father, Lee Bliss, was opposed to their marriage, so they drove to Hardin, Montana to tie the knot. They launched their family in the Clearmont area. Dad drove a school bus, herded sheep for local ranchers, and harvested sugar beets and worked odd jobs around Clearmont. They both helped Thelma's folks on the ranch at Ucross. Leroy, my brother, was born in 1944, and I was born in 1946. Sister Ardith was born 5 years later. We grew up living and working in several ranches in the Sheridan and Buffalo area. From the time I was born until I left home for college, Dad worked on 7 different ranches. His usual job was foreman for the farm work, supervising 1 to 10 hired hands. Mom cooked for the hired hands, and we moved around a lot, living in 9 different houses and attending 4 different schools before attending high school in Sheridan. Farm and ranch work required attention nearly 7 days a week, year-round. We had very few vacations. As we 3 kids got old enough, we were drawn into the ranch operations in one way or another. By 14, we actually got on the payroll, irrigating, stacking hay, milking cows, and feeding livestock in the winter. In our younger years, Leroy and I were close, but we had our differences that led to brotherly spats. Mom usually dealt with breaking us up. We did get some serious confrontations in our teen years over conflicting opinions on work. Important things, such as how to set a fence post or how to arrange bales, stacking hay. But we shared a room throughout our time at home, and as teenagers, we shared a room in the bunkhouse with hired hands. When I was a sophomore and Leroy a senior, we joined up with 3 friends and formed a dance band. For a year and a half, we blasted adventure-style rock at high school dances in Sheridan, Buffalo, Gillette, and other northern Wyoming communities. Leroy was on bass, and I played lead and rhythm guitar. Nobody sang. Most of my memories of Leroy revolve around his misfortunes. When he was about 9 years old, he contracted polio. He spent a year or so in leg braces. About a year after getting out of the braces, he attempted to ride a calf at branding time, and he was bucked off, and he fell into the firewood pile and shattered his left hip.
Oh.
For several months, he was confined to a bed, flat on his back, with a cast from his waist to his ankles on both legs. A brace at the knees kept his legs spread apart and immobilized. Our family life was upended. Mom spent a huge part of her days caring for him for several years after he was on crutches. In spite of this, he got very proficient getting around, but he spent a lifetime with a severe limp even after surgery in midlife. Sister Ardith, being the only girl and 5 years younger than me, was unintentionally relegated to being the tag-along in most kids' stuff. She was Mom's helper, and she was into horses, something neither Leroy or I really got excited about. In her preteen years, a friend gave her a colt, and that led to a lifelong obsession. She was never a challenge for the folks, and if there was a favorite, for them it was probably Ardith. That can't be said for me. I was a challenge, especially in my preschool years. I had a reputation for biting my playmates.
This all
And
comes out.
sometimes even my mother. I've heard stories about Mom chasing me around the yard with a pancake turner to deliver what I had coming. In about 1953, we moved to a location on the Fordyce Ranch on Lower Prairie Dog Creek, known to the locals as the Ham Place. Dad had been told that he could use a small pasture enclosure near the house for a garden, some chickens, and a few hogs. One day we came home to find that some of our hogs got out. They had escaped the pen and were in the adjacent pasture. Mom and Dad discussed how to round them up and get them back in. They had to leave our pasture gate closed, though, to keep the other hogs in. So Dad told Leroy to stay by the gate and open it when they got to the escaped hogs close. He said, excuse me, he said, be sure to open the gate when they get close, and you and Jimmy keep the other hogs from getting out. This gate was one of those wire gates with a post on either end, and the last with a wire loop coming off the gate post. The wire was woven wire, which made it pretty heavy and stiff. Mom and Dad headed off to bring in the hogs. Of course, the hogs quickly set off to the far side of the 40-acre pasture. The next 30 or 40 minutes was a miserable contest between 5 or 6 hogs and Mom and Dad. Every time they were bunched and heading in, they broke and they scattered. And I could hear Dad swear and yell at Mom to cut them off. Then Mom would yell something back, and they would run after them. Finally, they got them moving along the fence coming toward us. Dad whistled and yelled, "Leroy, open the gate." Leroy launched into the gate, trying to loosen the wire loop holding the gate stay. But it wasn't budging. He put his shoulder against the stay like we always saw Dad do, but to no avail. The hogs were coming in at a fast trot. Dad hollered again, "Open the damn gate." The hogs trotted past the closed gate and back out into the pasture. Dad arrived in a flood of swear words. His shirt was soaked. He was sweating profusely, and he was not happy. As he came through the gate, he grabbed Leroy by the arm and escorted him to the house. I trotted along behind to see what was going to happen. I stood in the doorway and watched as Dad sat down on the chair, pulled Leroy over his knee, and used a piece of firewood from the wood box, proceeded to give my brother about 5 substantial whacks on the butt. Well, as Leroy ran to our bedroom wailing and sobbing, I disappeared around the back of the house. This is the first whooping I had ever seen. It turned out it was the only one. As Mom told us in later years, she and Dad agreed that after that, she would deliver the discipline. And Dad never raised a hand against any one of us again.
Wow. Okay, so we aren't really kind of pushing it, but comments about what you heard?
Good story.
Yeah, lots
Yeah.
of description about hard
Yeah,
work.
I could relate to that.
What I could relate to is your dad cussing. My dad cussed every other word. That was
Oh, yeah.
bad.
Raising
How many of you have ever tried to open a wire gate with a stay in the middle? As a kid, we just couldn't do it. You know, it took 3 of us, you know, one would hold the bottom, one would hold the top, and the other would work the wire up, you know, and it was a massive. I mean, I visualized that one, and I could just imagine that whole scenario, so, yeah.
And it seems like there was a lot of them.
Oh, yeah, they were always that kind.
Oh.
There are so many details there, Jim, that I would love to hear you develop. The story about your brother's polio is in and of itself quite an important part of the story. Just the whole visual of what you've written is pretty amazing. So yeah, I'd say you're right. There's a lot to tell, and just keep telling it. Whatever I have in these prompts, if you decide to scrap the prompt. That you know, these are ideas, and we kind of want to keep people writing. But if you find that the thing I'm asking you to do doesn't really fit with what you're trying to get done, I'm really okay with that. Yeah, Clarence.
There is not heirloom in my family.
But let me ask this question. One of the things that we have out in front of our house is an old bell that was a dinner bell at our ranch. And it was out there, and it was the thing that called people from the bunkhouse. In the front of our yard is a great big old lye pot that my mother and grandmother used to make lye. So it might not be anything particularly fancy or anything that really is an important thing on a shelf, but it might be something that you remember, and you don't even have to have it in your possession.
A tool.
It might be something that you remember in particular that was part of your family's connection, you know, your history. That's the kind of, an heirloom doesn't have to be something that you take to an antique store and make $1 million off of. You know, that is really not it. It's what, like I read at the beginning, the picture that I have is not technically an heirloom, but it's part of the culture of who my mother was. I have a photograph that I had Paul Krasinski redo that I'd gotten water damage on it. It was taken by Life magazine of my dad and my uncle and a group of people for a profiled magazine article about ranching. And there's only 2 people that you can see their faces, my dad and my uncle, and they're laughing at each other, and everybody else is in this weird posed position. And my sister said, yeah, the reason they were laughing is the guy that is shoeing the horse in that, and you would know Whitey Drain. Whitey Drain was so drunk when he came that they were laughing at how he was barely able to stand up to do the horseshoeing. But the picture of my dad and my uncle is absolutely the most natural. That is my dad and my uncle when they would get together telling stories. They would laugh, and they were practically inseparable, and they almost never told a story that the other one wasn't sort of part of it. So it might not be a single heirloom. It might be just an object that, you know, stands out in your memory of where you lived, or maybe something that was part of your family history. So that's the kind of thing, you know, and as I said, if this doesn't match, do what you just are doing and keep writing. So I'm gonna turn this over. We are out of time, but Danica wants to talk to you about something. And I said I would rather let her talk about it than me do anything with it. And I've already given you the prompt, so you can work with it.
Sure.
Now, I'll talk to you here. in a few.
So the other part of this class is this creative aging class is funded by a grant. So the option, and I don't want to put anybody out and make you uncomfortable if it feels like too much, because we have to use our grant money by the end of June. So we proposed, when we were talking about this class, publishing and actually being able to put this into a bound book. So anybody and everybody who is interested in putting together, whether, if you're working on all these prompts this time and you put together as much as you can between now and the beginning of June.
Or May, actually.
Yeah, well, and I'm thinking it can run over.
Yeah, okay.
So I can help you with your book, the book end. It gives you the opportunity to add old photos, and you could handwrite notes. And I don't have my sample that I made with this printing option before, but it's pretty easy if we just say everybody who wants to might do an 8.5 by 11. If you want to do something different, it could be a little different in size, but it's pretty standard. We could make a nice book for you by the end. If you just start thinking about that, how we'll compile your information.
And it's individual. Each person gets their own book. It's not compiled into one book. It's every person will be given whatever you're working on.
Yeah, it's in the budget and it's paid for. So anybody who wants to get a couple of copies of this book to hand out to your family, and then if you decide you want more copies, you can, pay a little extra, but we do have a fair amount for everybody. And the class size is smaller, so there's actually more funding available. So you can either have a thicker book with more pages or more copies potentially.
Danica, how many pages was the original book? 80 or 60? How many pages was the book that we first looked at?
Oh, the one that I put together?
Well, the one that we were kind of talking about, for them to be able, so what number of pages would they be looking at, do you think?
The one I did my book, it's like a magazine, they called it. It was 30 pages. It had several colored, and I'll bring a sample of it next week so you can actually see it. Got 30 pages, and I think they ended up being $7 some odd cents, but I ordered 50 of them. So it really is going to go by, maybe everybody gets 5. So we'll have a little bit of wiggle room with people.
And a lot of it will be when we get ready to type it up, or when we do it in print, the font size will affect how many pages will look. So that height and the largeness of your print. Most of what I'm printing for you is typed out at 14 points. So if you do it at what generally is a 12 point, which is more standard, it will you'll have more print per page. But if you want something where you can see it, the 14 font, this size, I think is a little easier to read.
Yeah.
So
we could do 20 even,
and so-
and that's something that's really neat about this, is that it can be catered
Right.
towards you or your family members if you have eye vision problems.
But if
We
you've
can
got,
make it pretty large.
yeah, but I think if you're trying to get more pages in,
Yeah.
the 14 font would probably, for a lot of you, work pretty well. For those of you that are not dealing with that kind of limitation, then maybe you reduce it to the 12 font. Like Meredith was typed, probably everything you would do is in 12 point.
Yeah.
That used to be standard.
That's
yeah,
a
it's
standard,
pretty-
and then like DL or Sam, you guys probably have done other things when you've done work, but it's almost always 12 point.
In a particular font.
They usually, this particular thing is your option.
Yeah.
You can do Arial, you might do Courier, New York Times, or you
Yeah.
can do some of the other more fun script types, because you're making it. It's gonna be your book.
And
But-
you can start working with me as soon as you're ready. So if you say, I have 100 pages worth of stuff, get with me sooner.
Yeah, I mean,
And-
she might already be
Yep.
ready, but if you have things that you're working on and want to insert it,
Yeah.
you can wait till you're.
I have a program that I can help you
Yeah.
with the formatting and such. And just so y'all know, if you are interested in adding photos. There's a photography class coming up. Cell phone photography, so I can help you work with your settings to get nicer photos if you want to include photos. And then there's a sketching class that's starting the same week. So what might be fun, like we were talking about the maps, I think especially that first week, maps and mapping out almost. You might be able to draw a map of the
Yeah,
area
like I did with
potentially.
my house.
Oh, okay,
You know,
yeah.
yeah, I drew that up, and then that resulted, my sister got the drawing I had done, because I was just trying to remember, and then she did a whole 3 or 4 pages of stories about the house. So, I mean, you could do that kind of thing.
Yeah, so you can
Or-
add visuals. It's really fun and pretty easy for me to help you, so I don't be intimidated by it. But
Several years ago, Nancy Beatty, she did this really well drafted drawing from her house where they live out there on Hart Street, her corner where the truck stop was, all the way out to Red Hills Road and back around to where their Hackert family ranch was. It was really, really well done. And so I don't know whether Tammy would have it, but that was something that hers was beautifully done. It was nice.
Yeah.
So mine are a little bit more, they either have to be block sketches or, I'm not an artist.
well, and that's the thing. This is fun and simple, and anybody that wants some flyers, we can get you more if you needed sketching. And what was my last thought on that? I think that's most of it.
Okay. All right, well, you guys, I hope that, oh, and I will suggest this. I have an email address that I think I gave all of you a card for the first day. If you have that and you want to send me, like you didn't get to read today because we were making sure the people hadn't been heard. If you want to send me what you wrote, I will read it and then bring it back with some responses for next week, okay? So like, I sent some responses back, and so like Sam, a week or so ago, when he sent me something after our first session, I critiqued it.
I didn't see it.
Yeah, I just gave them cards, my business card. So,
Oh, the other thought is now they have, I think they probably caught everybody, but there is a button now on the scanner. So, I'll just write everybody's names down as long as you've got, scanned in up front for that count. This, I just want to make sure with my grant that I know week to week how many people were here. So this isn't as bad, but just make sure from now on there is a scan in place.
There's just one writing group.
today,
Friday,
on
yep.
Friday, it's just the one righty group, then the Monday one is a different day, and they have that, this is a different
It's
setup.
It's writing group 2 p.m. Friday.
Okay, but
Yeah.
there's another one.
Yes,
Yeah,
on Mondays.
it's totally
on-
separate.
And that's a separate, that's.
It says, it says,
Creative aging.
creative writing group.
And hers, when DL showed me, it was on the second page of activities on Fridays.
And
So,
it's on the second page of the other one as well, but it's,
It was writing group Friday afternoon.
okay, yep, something along those lines. So just make sure you get scanned in so we get
the numbers.
accounted for everybody every week because
Well,
that's
there,
important.
as Edie pointed out to me the other day, there are some amazing pieces that you're sharing. It's all good.
Yeah,
You know, every one of you shared, I mean,
Such a diverse group.
oh, yeah.
yeah,
But trust me, it's an interesting challenge to come up with a plan for every week. I'm revising as I go.
yeah.
So, but yeah, so you guys have done a great job. And I think if Dave can get with you,
Yeah,
and then maybe when you can get something in text, I can work with it as well and give you some pointers on how to kind of just tighten it down a little bit, Dave. The biggest challenge is I don't want to take a handwritten copy because it's yours and it's a first draft. So it's important. Meredith, thank you for driving all the way up.
yeah.
Yeah, my husband's out there
And
waiting.
you know
so
what?
I-
Oh, you should come in sometime too then.
And I
Drag
loved
him
your
along.
story. I thought it was just great.
Thanks.
I really, she is an excellent writer, and I'm enjoying what she's presenting. So I printed it off today, and I was hoping you'd get a chance. This was really nice. So it was a good one.
Thank you.
So about her
I,
grandfather.
I want to do one for like every one of my ancestors I knew personally.
Yeah.
And I'll have one next week, and I'll bring the heirloom with me.
Oh, great. That would be
So,
cool. That would be
I've
very.
got a story that will shock you, because it shocked me when I found out about it. So,
Well, we're looking forward to it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
so I'll see you guys next week.
All right. thank you.
Real life is
Oh,
better than
snow.
fantasy most of the time, I think.
Oh, okay, that would be great. Not the same. Okay. Yes, I really enjoyed that story.